What is up, everyone? Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series, where I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit regarding my personal experiences with the most recent video game releases. And the game that we're going to talk about today, it's a unique series of games, let's put it that way, because what this game has found a way to do is to kind of reinvent itself in every iteration of this series. Now, most games, when you say it's the sequel, it's the third one, you realize probably it's going to be pretty close to what you were doing in the first two games. This game has managed to completely change its plot, its characters, and even core gameplay elements 3 different times with each release. So the game we're going to talk about today is actually a surprisingly good game, a game that I had no idea if it was going to be good or not, and I ended up liking it. It's one of my favorite games of the year, Far Cry 3, okay? So Far Cry 3, like its previous 2 installments, starts off fresh, wipes the slate clean. You start off the game as a group of, I guess, it's never really said definitively how old they are, but they're young adults. They're probably, I'd say, in their early to mid-20s, who are on vacation. They're kind of doing like almost a world tour, and they decide to end their vacation on a tropical island, which they parachute down to, and they decide that they're going to have like a little kind of cool tropical ending to everything that they've been doing. So you almost kind of get the feeling, they're a little bit kind of the rich white crowd. They're kind of probably a little bit on the affluent side, maybe even a little bit, you know, kind of full of themselves, almost a little bit douchebaggy, and the game starts off with this kind of just a jovial, joking kind of mannerism. But as soon as you actually start playing the game, you realize how gritty, how grim this game actually gets. Because what happens is, they end up getting kidnapped by a group of pirates who have decided to make their home on this island. And the game picks up where you are in the role of Jason Brody, one of these kidnapped youths, and you're trying to escape from the pirates. Well, next thing you know, someone who's with you gets murdered. It becomes, you know, apparent that this is some serious shit. These people are pretty much crazy, and they're going to probably try to ransom you, and things just take a dark turn. Now, what ends up happening is Jason actually escapes, ends up being rescued by someone who, at first, is kind of a confusing character. His name is Dennis, and he apparently is also a resident of this island, but he's not one of the pirates. Come to find out, Dennis is actually a tribe of natives called the Rakyat, who have a unique combination of kind of a mystical aspect. They almost seem to have superhuman powers. At the same time, they actually take drugs to do things, let's put it that way. I mean, in the game they pitch it as, it's like a healing item, or it might help you hunt animals better, but I think really what they're getting at is this is kind of a group, almost like a gang of natives who have come together, and they're all always kind of in these drug-induced hazes, and they makes them feel like they can do superhuman feats. So, over the course of Far Cry 3, you play the role of Jason, trying to rescue your friends from the pirates. At one point, it actually becomes a really interesting struggle between do you care more about rescuing your friends or getting revenge for your friends who have been killed and or harmed during the course of the game? Is it more about just being safe or taking vengeance? And that really runs the course of the game all the way to the ending, and I'm not going to give away the ending, but there are 2 alternate endings basically depending on which path you choose. So, pretty interesting, and again, completely unique from the last 2 Far Cry games, has nothing to do with them, but it's a pretty interesting plot. So now let's talk about the gameplay of Far Cry 3, because this is really, out of all the games I've played this year, this game almost feels like you're playing 3 completely different games, okay? And I'll explain what I mean during the course of the review. Now, I think the first thing that we should do, since I want to spend so much time talking about the single-player campaign, is to gloss over the other 2 modes of the game and get them out of the way. The game does have a competitive multiplayer mode and also a full 4-player co-op mode, both split-screen co-op, local, or 4-player over the internet. So first let's talk about the multiplayer. The multiplayer is pretty boring. It's your standard FPS fare. You have loadouts that as you play really, played out game modes like domination, like team deathmatch, this kind of stuff, that you'll earn unlocks, you'll get better weapons, you'll actually find items that allow you to unlock unique weapons down the road, and you'll have different, equipment and stuff on your body. And it does have a couple unique elements to it, one of which is called the battle cry, which is like almost an area of effect, kind of a buff that you can use during the gameplay to help out your team. So maybe there's a battle cry that raises everyone's maximum HP, you can yell it out, and now everyone gets more health temporarily. And there's also, there's also this weird, it's hard to explain, but the kill cam isn't necessarily a kill cam. What happens is when you die, wherever your attacker was standing is highlighted, and it shows the bullet trails of when they were shooting and how you got hit, okay? Outside of those two things, there's not really a lot that's unique about this. It's like I said, it's game modes you've played before. It's probably, you know, gameplay that's been done better elsewhere. It almost feels like, you know, the multiplayer of this game is tacked on simply because they wanted to say, oh, this is just like, it's an FPS game, and everyone knows that FPS games needs multiplayer. I don't think that's the case. If you really want my opinion, I don't think this game needed the multiplayer. I don't think that it even adds anything to the game, because there's actually no achievements and no rewards for playing the multiplayer. There's no real reason to ever go back to it. There's no ranking, there's no prestiging, you know what I mean? It's not like someone from Call of Duty who, oh, I prestige 20 times. No one's going to care who hit max level in Far Cry 3. And there's, like I said, there's no achievements, there's no goal to lead towards, there's no incentive to play this multiplayer. Now let's talk a little bit about the co-op. The co-op mode is about a 3 to 3.5 hour long mode that has 6 chapters, each of which has several different levels inside of each chapter. Now, the gameplay is pretty generic yet again. It's pretty much your standard first-person shooter fare. You're going to be shooting, you're going to be going for headshots, you're going to be going up hordes and hordes of repetitive enemies. The little bit of difference here from other FPS games is that it actually allows you to gain experience during the co-op campaign, just as if you were playing the multiplayer, and as you gain experience, you earn loadouts. So the cool thing is you can actually be getting better guns and bombs and things during the course of the co-op campaign that allow it to become easier once you get these better weapons. And it actually is funny because in my playthrough that I did of this full 4-player co-op, where I played with a few fans and also the Arid Lord, that we unlock all these explosives, and what it ended up being is us just blowing the living shit out of everything repeatedly because we have so many explosives. We just tossing C4, shooting off RPGs, fucking grenade launchers, just boom, boom, explosions all over the place, to the point where it even became, like, it was a running joke. It's just so funny that you could just do that. And we ended up beating it in just over 3 hours. You end up getting about 120 achievement points and or 5 or 6 trophies for completing it. It's pretty generic. It's you know, it's nice that it's in there. It's cool if you want to have a couple hours of fun with your friends, but it's nothing that you're going to write home about, wow, it blew me away, the co-op campaign. Not really, okay? It's been there, it's done that, it's not that good. Now, really, the meat of the game is the single-player campaign. This is where you're going to get the vast majority of gameplay and enjoyment out of Far Cry 3. So let's talk about it. It is an open world, and when I say that, I mean you start off on this island, and immediately you get a mini-map, and on your mini-map you're going to see a couple different things. You're going to see flags which represent outposts. Now, what outposts are basically like fortresses or forts, whatever you want to call them. They're all kind of different, but they're controlled by the enemy. And in the beginning of the game, it's pirates. Later on, it's like privateers, which are privately owned security forces, but they've taken control of this outpost, and what your goal is to get everyone out of there, kill them all basically, one way or another. Now, there's several ways to go about doing the things in Far Cry 3. You can be straight up gung-ho, and you could charge in guns blazing and try to kill everyone. Problem being, these outposts actually have alarm systems, and if you don't kill everyone before they activate an alarm, the alarm will go off and actually reinforcements will show up. You'll have jeeps and jeeps of people rolling in with mounted guns and shit, and it actually makes it 2 to 3 times more difficult to take over this outpost. Now, if you do it a different way, a more sneaky way, it's all about the stealth kill. And I compare this game, probably the most recent games that are very similar to the stealth kill system in this game would be Deus Ex Human Revolution from last year and Dishonored from this year, where what your goal is to sneak around everyone so they don't see you, sneak up behind them, do an instant kill takedown, drag their body out of sight, and then move on to the next person. And so really a lot of the game ends up being the sneaking style of gameplay. You're trying to be the silent assassin. And it's actually kind of fun, and it's pulled off pretty well. Now, there's incentive to doing things the sneaky way, because when you take over an outpost, you get a big experience point reward. If you do it just guns blazing, you only get 500 points. If you happen to be spotted by someone but they never turn on the alarm, you get an extra 50 points. But if you never get spotted by anyone in the camp and you stealth kill everyone, you get 1,500 experience points, which, just to give you an idea, is a big chunk of experience in the game. So it's going to behoove you to try to figure out creative ways to sneak around everyone and take them out, you know, undercover and never be detected, because you're going to get these giant experience point rewards. When you finally do take over the outpost, it now becomes a fast travel point for yourself, where at any time during the game, and I mean at any time, you can fast travel to it. Also, it unlocks side content, and some of the side content is some of the best, most fun content in the game. So let me give you the rundown of the different kinds of side missions that there are at these outposts. There's assassination missions, which I think it's actually just called Wanted Dead. But what these missions are optional missions that give you experience and money rewards. What you need to do is go to another group of enemies somewhere out in this world map, and you need to kill a certain one or maybe one or two people in that camp, well, not undetected, but with a knife. You're not allowed to shoot them. If you shoot them, you fail them. And it's fun, again, trying to sneak in. Gee, let me get a vantage point. Let me see. And there's this camera that you can actually use. It's a digital camera, and you zoom in, and it'll actually mark the enemies that are at these areas, whether it's at an outpost or at one of these assassination missions. And now they actually show up on your mini-map, and you can even see the directions they're looking and the way that they're walking. And this helps you plan out your stealthy attacks for these missions. So your goal, again, is to sneak in and kill those guys with the knife. Whether or not you completely get undetected or not is up to you, but you get experience bonuses for stealth kills. There's also hunting in the game. So this is where it kind of takes a unique turn. It's not just a generic FPS. You've got hunting, and there's all kinds of animals in the games, including tigers, mountain lions / cougars, or I think they might call them, I don't know if they call them, I think they call it a black panther, but it's really just the same as the other ones, or you know, they're the same kind of an animal. Buffalo, warthogs, pigs, deer. There's a lot of different animals in the game. Komodo dragons are in the game. Those are pretty cool. And the thing is, hunting kind of happen of your own choice, or you could do these hunting side missions that you unlock by unlocking outposts. And what these missions are, they give you a specific objective. They'll tell you to go to a certain point in the map and pick up a weapon that's at this point, and then you have to go kill a certain amount of animals with this particular weapon. And sometimes it can be really challenging, especially if it's one of the weaker weapons, like the bow. You know, there was a mission, kill a bunch of Komodo dragons with the bow, and it was hard because you try to hit them with the bow, but they're coming at you, and they're biting you, and they're attacking you, and it can be pretty crazy. Additional side content. Well, similar to how in Assassin's Creed you go to vantage points and it unlocks all the things on your map for that particular area, the same exact thing is in this game, only they're radio towers. And what you have to do is use first-person platforming in order to climb to the top of this tower, similar to, I would say, probably games like Mirror's Edge and Portal. But this is where I think one of the things where the game kind of fails. The platforming here is very iffy. It's very hard to tell when you're doing jumps to try to go from one ledge to another while you're climbing these radio towers, whether or not you're going to make it. It's hard to tell where your feet are going to land. And a lot of the times, I just fell very ridiculously because I overjumped, or I jumped too short, or I thought I was going to grab the ledge and he just didn't do it. First-person platforming, in my opinion, is something that really hasn't been done well, except for those two games that I just previously mentioned. A lot of games try it, and most of them fail. In this case, Far Cry 3 really didn't hit the mark. The first-person platforming portions are a little bit annoying, especially when you're at maybe you need to get from point A to point B, and you've never been there before, or you're not familiar with the area, and you're trying to walk, and there's a giant mountain, and you're trying to climb the mountain, you get halfway up, you realize it's too steep, and now you can't do it. Now you gotta fucking try to go around. And another gripe that I have with the game is that the game makes you fall just by climbing up the side of a mountain. You'll start sliding all of a sudden. If it's too steep, you won't be able to stop yourself, and you'll die or get significantly injured. And even just jumping a few feet off the ground and landing, sometimes you get hurt significantly. And that was a real gripe of mine. Is the whole deal with this game is that you actually, during the course of the game, become initiated by the Rock Yacht natives, and they start teaching you mystical abilities. As you level up, you're going to get different things, such as, oh, better damage resistance. Oh, maybe you have more health. Maybe you can carry more healing items. Maybe You can do different combat abilities, a different kind of stealth kill, a combo kill. And one of them even is reduced damage when you fall. But even once you get that upgrade, you still take massive damage from falls. And it's like, you're supposed to be this superhuman guy, and all of a sudden you have this startling weakness that, like, if you fall 3 feet, you can die. It's a really weird game mechanic that they put in. I don't know why. But outside of that, after you find these radio towers and you scale them and it reveals the map, it also reveals all the items and all the other things in the game. And usually, when you reveal the ground with the radio tower, it also reveals a supply drop mission. Now what that is another side mission. Again, you might get money or experience for it, where there's a random vehicle. And you have to drive that vehicle from point A to point B within a certain amount of time, following waypoints along the way. And if you do, you get rewarded for it with money and experience. Every time you unlock an outpost, you also unlock a weapons vendor. It's weird because it's a vending machine. You're like, in what country do they sell guns out of a vending machine? You know what I mean? It's kind of weird, but similar to, say, how Borderlands and Borderlands 2 did, there's vending machines that sell weapons, and you can use that to buy new weapons as you get money. As you unlock radio towers, weapons actually become free to take out of this vending machine. And there's also upgrades you can buy for the weapons, and later on you might want to buy a suppressor because it's a silenced weapon. Now, a whole new aspect to this stealth kill in the game is that you can use silenced weapons to start taking people out rather than all melee and stealth assassinations, and people might not know. If they don't see that person get shot or see the dead body, they won't be alerted and they'll never pull an alarm, which is a pretty interesting thing. And actually about halfway through the game I started using suppressed weapons, and it made the game significantly easier for me. In addition to all of that, there's obviously the story that you have to follow. And the story is really interesting, and it'll take you from all these different points on this one particular island and put you through a whole different variety of missions. Whether it's just standard go kill someone, whether it's blow some shit up, whether it's get a certain item off a certain guy. And there's all kinds of different missions, and they unlock different characters and different stories, and there's really unique characters and people in this game that are kind of really well written and interesting characters, and you're wondering, gee, what were their histories, where did they come from? Sometimes you get your answers, sometimes you don't, and I was a little disappointed by the end of the game. There were 1 or 2 people who I would have liked them to know a lot more about, and I didn't, okay? But overall, the open world aspect of Far Cry 3 is probably the biggest asset. You're going to find yourself immersed in this beautiful tropical paradise that is also extremely dangerous because of these pirates, these privateers who are basically taking over the island, and also dangerous wild animals that could just jump out of the forest and attack you at any time. Now there's a couple other game mechanics I haven't talked about, so let's do that as well. You might say to yourself, well Phil, how do you heal yourself in this game? Is it regenerating health like in Call of Duty and all these other FPS games? Well, yes and no. You will only regenerate the final chunk of health on your health bar, and your health bar, I believe you start out with 4 chunks, and then you can upgrade it to, I think, to 8 total. Don't quote me on that. I'm almost positive that's what it is, but I'm not 100% not remembering right now. But only the latest one will regenerate, and after that they'll all remain empty. So what you need to do is craft items, and that's right, there's a whole other aspect to the game when it comes to crafting. Now crafting basically means taking different resources from the world, whether it's a plant, the wild plant that you harvest, or an animal skin from after killing it and hunting an animal, you skin it to create things. Sometimes you can create drugs, and yes, I mean that, drugs that do different effects. Maybe there's a healing drug, it restores your HP. Maybe there's a drug that allows you to have better vision so you can see through the forest, the dense jungle, you can see through hills, and you can see animals. And if you're during a certain hunt, you need to kill a certain animal, it definitely helps. Some other potions allow you to swim underwater for longer periods of time. Some of the ones from later in the game allow you to become invincible temporarily. So they have various uses, and they're actually interesting to use. There's also items that you can craft for your body. So for example, by killing a certain kind of animal and getting a certain number of its hides, you could create a better gun holster. So instead of only being able to hold 1 weapon, you can hold up to 4 weapons at any time during the course of the game. You can hold grenades, you can hold Molotov cocktails, you can increase your inventory that allows you to pick up more loot, and that's something we haven't even covered yet. But similar to the Fallout series of games, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, there's loot throughout the world, and the only real purpose of loot is to sell it for money. Really, you're not going to be finding any loot that you're going to be using to do anything else with, unlike Fallout, where sometimes you can take those items and craft weapons and stuff out of them. In this case, loot is solely for money. So you'll be going around and finding, oh, there's a crate, loot it, oh, I killed this guy, stealth kill, now you loot the body, you take the stuff off of him, and you're going to get some money initially, and then later on when you go to a vending machine, you can sell the loot to make more money. So there's a lot of things that you can craft based off of the animal skins, and at first I didn't even understand this. I didn't think that it was that important, and the next thing I knew, I was several hours into the game, I could still only carry one weapon. I didn't have a big enough wallet to hold enough money, and the thing is, if you don't make bigger wallets, you are limited to how much money you can hold at one time, and you won't even be able to have enough money at one time to buy some of the better weapons in the game. So the point that I'm getting at is the side content, such as the hunting, such as, you know, going out and actually getting, sorry, my phone's vibrating, take it off the table, actually going out and getting some of these side missions, it's all worth it because you're going to constantly be leveling, constantly improving yourself, constantly being able to craft new items that, again, improve your loadout and make everything better. So it's really fun to do all the side content of the game. The only other side content that I think is really worth mentioning is that every once in a while there's a random side mission, and these are completely different objectives. Some of them might be just go to one person and say something. Well, some of them might be go kill this particular person, go steal this particular loot from this person. And you do these for the actual natives of the island. Those usually give you both experience and money rewards. Outside of those, there's also item collection, and just like in a lot of other games where, oh, there's items that I have to go, remember in Assassin's Creed when you had to collect all those flags and or feathers and or whatever the item was? That's also present in this game. In this game you've got two different kinds. You've got relics, which are just little kind of, almost looks like urns that give you experience boosts. And then in addition to that, the more that you collect, you start unlocking extra stuff. You'll unlock a unique knife. You'll unlock different, I think once you get a certain amount of them, you actually can craft a better drug that you can use during combat. So it's interesting, the dual aspect of finding the relics. And then there's also these lost letters, which are hidden on the bodies of dead Japanese soldiers from World War II. That's right, this island was apparently like an outpost for the Japanese during World War II, and so you will find dead Japanese soldiers littered around the island. There's 20 of them, each of which has a letter that actually has a story element to it. I didn't really care too much for that, I'll be honest. But between all the stuff that there is to do in this game, the hunting, the exploration, the platforming, the side assassinations, the exploration, I already said that, the finding all of these unique items that are littered throughout the place, the side mission content, and then the campaign, the game is actually over 20 hours long. My playthrough was some ridiculously long amount, like over 150 parts, I believe. So the game's single-player campaign has a massive amount of content. In addition, the story, even though if you just play the base story and you don't do any of the side content, you'll probably still get around 8 to 10 hours of gameplay out of it, but the story is fun. It's got unique characters. The guy on the cover is probably one of my favorite characters of the damn year. He's a psychopath. He's a crazy killer. He's got no regard for anybody. But later on, you actually find out that there were intentions behind his actions. You just didn't realize what was going on at the time. So really fun and interesting, and I really enjoyed the characters and the story of this game. So when you look at a game like Far Cry 3, you're like, wow, it tries to be a jack of all trades. It's got this really amazing, open world, fun, FPS campaign. The campaign was actually called, compared to Skyrim with Guns by someone at Machinima who had played this game ahead of time. And I think in some ways that's true. I do have to say the side content is a lot more repetitive than that in Skyrim. It doesn't have as many unique quest arcs or anything like that like Skyrim did. So in that regard, it's a little bit on the lighter side, but for an FPS game to have this much content, the uniqueness of how many combinations of gameplay you're going to be doing between the hunting, the platforming, the sneaking, you know, the missions that are just on-rail shooters or something like that, there's an amazing amount of content in the game. Then, to boot, outside of the fact that the game's outstanding on its own, although it does have some flaws that I've already mentioned, it then has multiplayer and co-op, and it's like, holy shit, like they really went all out with this game. They wanted to make sure that not one person could stand up and say, but it doesn't have that, but it doesn't have this. they really tossed in a lot of stuff. Now, unfortunately, like I said previously, it really does seem like the multiplayer and the co-op maybe were kind of afterthoughts or things that were worked on separately from the campaign, and they really put them in there just to say the game had it, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good thing that it has it. It's more content. So you're talking 20 plus hours just from the story campaign, plus additional content, and it's a great story. This is one of the best games of the year, and I'm actually disappointed that a lot of these big media outlets decided to do their Game of the Year awards before or around the time when this game came out, because I think this game got snubbed. I was watching the Spike TV VGAs and hearing they didn't even talk about this game because the game had come out that week. That's so unfortunate. How can you snub a game because you decide to hold your awards earlier really than you should? You should wait till the year's over before you do your awards. I'm a firm believer that no one should be doing Game of the Year awards until January, and that's actually when I'm going to do my Game of the Year awards this year. So it's basically, I don't want people to miss out on this experience. This is one of my favorite games of the year, and it does have some flaws, don't get me wrong, but bang for your buck, especially people who are always saying, man, I love good games, but I hate good games that are short because I've spent $60 and I only played it for 8 hours. This is your game. This is the game that you're going to be playing the hell out of this year. So Far Cry 3, really fun gameplay, a combination of a lot of different fun things, really fun side missions, open world atmosphere, a very interesting story, plus multiplayer and a 3-hour co-op campaign. You can't go wrong with the game, even though it does have some flaws that I think could have been improved. I'm going to give Far Cry 3 a 9 out of 10. That's right. This game stands up there amongst some of the other games from the past few months that I feel is really one of the best games of the year. And let me tell you something, just a few months ago, right before the hardcore gaming season of this year started, back in around early September, I said, man, it's been such a slow year. I'm really disappointed in this year. I really hope that it picks up this hardcore gaming season, because as of right now, I didn't really have any games in my head that I could say, oh, these are real Game of the Year contenders. Now I do. A game like Far Cry 3, this is a Game of the Year contender. This is a game you want to play. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Don't miss out, because it came out so late and a lot of media aren't talking about this game. This game is definitely one of the best of the year. So, Far Cry 3, 9 out of 10 in my opinion. Okay. That's it for the Hateful Truth review. I hope that you found it informative, and I hope this has opened the eyes of some people who otherwise maybe wouldn't have checked this game out. It's definitely worth checking out. And I hope that now you, for yourself, can judge whether or not you want to check out the game. So, thanks a lot for watching this episode of The Hateful Truth, and I will see you next time for another review. Peace.